This is the third and last video on connections, or connecting the dots between Santeria, Wicca, and charisma. And I'm into the part of my essay with a section titled Jesus and Spiritual Power. Jesus, especially toward the close of his ministry, warned about troubling times to come. When Jesus and his disciples asked him about what was ahead, his answer began with, quote, "See that no one leads you astray." That's Matthew 24:4. Then in verse 11 he said, "And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray." Then there is more in verse 24, quote, "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect." Power. The devil has power and does miracles. This was certainly true at Jim Jones's People's Temple in San Francisco. Oil drifting from the ceiling and landing on the pages of open Bibles. Angels' wings brushing the shoulders and heads of worshipers. The smell of the sweet savor of the Lord, and upraised hands being clasped by unseen hands. All this I myself experienced on 2 separate occasions. The devil does the miraculous for sure. Mere power displays are proof of nothing other than that spiritual forces are at work. The Apostle Paul warned the Ephesian elders that, "After my departure, fierce wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock, and from among your own selves will arise men speaking twisted things to draw away the disciples after them." There is more in Scripture to support the argument that not all supernatural events are godly and holy. Now a section called Charisma need not be connected to Santeria and Wicca. But at issue here specifically are the trance states, the altered states of consciousness that can be produced in some forms of worship. It seemed to me that if well-educated and aware people can fall into religions such as Santeria and Wicca, then certainly those in the pews might also be vulnerable, so a cautionary word might be of value, and that's what I'm doing here. This then is the chief reason for the booklet and for these videos. Yes, I hope to dissuade people from getting involved in Santeria and Wicca, or anything else that involves something close to practices that can induce trance states. It is in the trance state that people get hooked into the religion of Santeria and Wicca. Once the miraculous is encountered, as happens in both Santeria and Wicca, the deception is bought into, usually completely. And the reason is that our natural and normal mental and emotional guards are down in the trance state, and thus we are opened up to the possibility of being invaded or possessed by entities that are by no means benign. My concern also then is for those in the broad Christian community, those who are exploring contemplative or centering prayer. On the one hand, those who are tempted by such practices as soaking prayer and sozo ministry, practices that move one into a trance state, much like what happens in Santeria or Wicca. One approach might be helpful and to repeat, and that is to ask whether a practice has both clear and unquestioned precedent and or warrant in the Christian Scripture. Precedent, do we see it in the Bible? And David dancing naked after a military victory is not a precedent. Precedent, did Jesus do it, teach it, allow it? Do we see it in the experience of the early church as recorded in the Bible? Some will say that the Bible can be used to condone almost anything, but this is not quite accurate. But Scripture can be bent and twisted to do so. Precedent, this must be clear and unequivocal. Warrant, if something is not specifically taught and or practiced in Scripture, then there must be biblical warrant or a clear reason based on doctrine to accept whatever is in question, whether a practice or doctrine. This is the more liberal test, and one that must be more carefully examined. One of the factors that has led to so much mischief and deception is the idea that due to our living in the last days, those days just before the second coming of Jesus, then we are off the charts, and God is doing things that are not mentioned in the Bible. How convenient. Anything goes now, especially if promoted by a powerful charismatic leader with a lot of resources and reputation. This claim is fraudulent and disingenuous, and upon hearing, one is best served by heading for the nearest exit. Lastly, Santeria and Wicca, poor company to keep indeed. For these involved in religions, for whatever reason, that are toxic at minimum, we must all consider that we are vulnerable to mischief and mayhem. It is, as the old proverb has said, there but for the grace of God, go I. Thank you, and hope this has been of some encouragement to the Christian church at large.